Hello everyone, my name is Malcolm Carlisle. I am a student at Arizona State University, and this is part of an ongoing series looking at preventing suicide in the veteran population. Uh, the the goal of this program is to identify areas that are not commonly looked at but have links to suicide, and so we can take steps to prevent them. Right. So today we're going to be talking about self-esteem and meaning and purpose. And some of these things can be hard to define, especially when you start talking about meaning and purpose. There have been few real studies on it. But there are a lot of links to meaning and purpose to suicide prevention. So we're looking at more of the underlying internal mental mechanics to suicide prevention. First off, we're going to pick up with self-esteem. So what is self-esteem? This is essentially confidence in one's own worth or abilities. It is your self-respect. There are definitely links to low self-esteem and suicide. So if you look at this study that was done by Overholtson in 1995, low self-esteem was related to higher levels of depression, hopelessness, suicidal ideation, and increased likelihood of having previously attempted suicide. Now, another study by Zhang in 2014, this analysis revealed that anger and self-esteem were significantly associated with suicidal ideation regardless of age and after controlling for depression. Now that last little part here about the after controlling for depression, because there are a lot of links to depression and suicide. I believe it's approximately 50% of people who have attempted or go in for suicide prevention issues have depression. So they wanted to control for that issue to see if it was something separate from depression, and these studies show that it is. And since we know there are impacts of low self-esteem beyond just suicide prevention, so there's more than one, not that this is not an important reason, but there's more than one reason to focus on your self-esteem. Now, self-esteem was related to higher levels of relationship satisfaction, job satisfaction, occupational status, salary, and physical health. And this is from Orth in 2012. And from the same person in 2013, people with low self-esteem were more prone to depression. Both clinical levels and milder forms of depressed affect, that's their mental state, and depressed people are more likely to feel worthless, incompetent, and inadequate. So even in cases where self-esteem leads to the depression, that's the problem here is because depression can lead to those feelings of low self-worth, and then ultimately here in this case, since depression is the psychiatric diagnosis most commonly associated with suicide, then, and that depression is present in at least 50% of all suicides, by helping with self-esteem issues, we can take out a critical, important piece of people becoming suicidal. All right, so focusing then on improving self-esteem. Now, just a note here, all right? Self-belief does usually go along with it achieving things, all right? The difficult part can be instilling self-esteem and self-belief, all right? So we want to make people feel better about themselves, and it is usually internalized. It is something that others may have little control over because of their self-dialogue, and so it's something they need to focus on, or you need to focus on to improve. All right, so a big part of improving self-esteem is speaking nicely to yourself. All right, and you'll hear it referred to as self-talk. And most people, if you've ever heard this phrase before, are their own toughest critic. Think about the times that you said to yourself after you do something like, oh, that was so stupid, or why did I do that? And you become angry with yourself. But if someone else did something similar, you would tell them, hey, it's not a big deal. We'll make it work. We'll figure things out, right? You are in a relationship with yourself, and you have to be nice with it. Don't abuse yourself, okay? So, and this is part of the process, is listening to what you're saying to yourself, right? When you use negative self-talk, take a note of it and pause for a second and change those thoughts to something more upbeat and positive. And if you, again, and what would you say to somebody else, all right? If you stumped your toe, say, oh, I'm so stupid. Hey, right? Tell yourself, things happen. Everybody in the history of, womankind, mankind has probably stubbed their toe at some point. It's not the worst thing that ever happened, right? So those are the kind of ways you can think about improving your self-talk. When you make or achieve something, when you have a success, acknowledge it, right? Don't attribute it to luck, right? Even if you do nothing more than say you like yourself, right? Say you like yourself 25 times a day. It will help with self-esteem. All right, other ways to improve self-esteem. You need to seek and demand respect, all right? Now, you can, to a limited extent, right, you can have a locus of control about how others treat you and perceive you. Not in every case, right? Some people, maybe you can extend that locus of control over them, but you should make the effort when you can, because we often attract those that we feel we deserve. And those people will treat you with the exact respect that you demand of them. And if you demand no respect from them, that is the way they will exhibit it, or that's what they'll give you. So you really need to work on skills for asserting yourself. Speak up with your opinions. You can be firm but diplomatic. Being assertive is not the same thing as being rude. All right, show others how to treat you. All right, ask for positive feedback. Maybe they don't understand, or maybe they just didn't think about that. Maybe they have their own self-esteem issues, and that's how they're used to talking to themselves, and that's how they talk to other people. And you can use this in work and personal relationships. So just don't be afraid. And I know it can be kind of embarrassing sometimes to simply ask somebody, hey, if I do something right, will you tell me? If the things I do good, talk to me about. And that can go for your partners as well, your romantic relationships. There needs to be a flow then, a conversation, right? You can do this for other people as well, right? Tell others what you like about them. Because ultimately, if you're critiquing people, and it's the only style that you know, if you're only offering basically negative other talk, then that's going to impact other people's self-esteem. Try something new. You can give a sincere and specific compliment. Tell them they did a good job today. You appreciated their work, right? Even something as simple as that can make a big difference. And so you can comment on those positive traits of others, and that can boost your self-esteem. Now, are you guaranteed that you're going to get a compliment back? No, of course not. But most people, once you've kind of taught them how you want to be taught to, they will speak to you that way, and so they could reciprocate. All right, other ways to improve self-esteem. You do have worth. There is intrinsic value in human life. You want to acknowledge that you are worthy of love, of value. All right, and understanding that there is no perfect person, and sometimes you feel when you have not attained perfection that you're not worthy, right? But everyone has value without conditions, and acknowledging that can help you in your personal relationships. All right, so take a personal inventory of possible or potential skills and talents. You don't have to be, a master guitar player or DJ or any of those things, but you can take 3 to 5 things that you want to be better or good at, and that you'll devote time to. Don't pick something obscure that you're never going to do, or give the time to, like playing guitar, for example. If you pick something that you're not going to do, then it's going to be an impossible task. But developing even simple skills, maybe you're going to learn how to do weight training, or any number, how to blog, how to do a podcast. There could be a number of things that you can become better at, and that can help your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and even your self-discipline as you're making time to do something to improve yourself. All right, so failure for many people is the path to success. Okay, I heard my wife say something very interesting the other day. No one was a master walker when they were a baby, right? They fell down 100 times. And if they stopped right then the first time they failed, they wouldn't be able to walk today. Well, that's no different than anything else. So you need to overcome that fear of failure. So fear is often a problem of perception and resources, right? Think about, you didn't find a place the first time. Like, oh, I got lost. That's, if you have GPS and you're in the same town, you're going to find this place, right? You're going to allocate some resources to it, and you'll be able to get there. All right. So thinking about the things you can do, the things that you have, impact this. Failure is normal part of the learning process, right? So look at it this way, right? Imagine a person being involved in a fender bender, right? Now, if you have a person with no insurance, maybe their license is expired, right? They're going to be terrified. They're going to know when someone shows up, they're going to get a ticket, maybe they're going to get in trouble. Now, same person, right? They just won the lottery. Money is no issue, and so suddenly you can see how the same issue with adequate resources or abilities or skills impacts your emotional ability less. So you can see that fear stems from the uncertainty, the anticipation of dreaded outcomes, and so most people do worry about things that are never going to happen. All right, so let's talk about that fear of never happening. And I do understand, especially when we talk about risk assessment, right? That's a big thing in the military, and maybe it's something you've carried over into the veteran aspect of your life. You're looking for every single thing that can go wrong, right? We're not talking about, making sure you've secured a vehicle so it doesn't roll down a hill. That's a different kind of thing, right? We're talking about fear of the unknown. You're creating some of these things in your head that would be unlikely to happen. All right, so we're going to do a little fear of failure activity. So give yourself a couple of minutes, right? And I want you to write down something that you were worried about, or 2 to 3 things you're worried about a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 weeks ago, right? Now, what were you worried about a year ago? And what did you do? How did it make you feel, right? And then what actually happened? The same thing. What happened 6 months ago? What were you afraid of, right? And then things that you did, how it made you feel, and what happened, and then finally that thing, 2 weeks ago. All right, moving back to this real quick. For most of you, you're probably going to find most of your fears were unfounded. Obviously, there are going to be corner cases. If you're getting deployed, there will be real fears, right? But there are real steps you can take to help deal with those issues. So in many cases, it's thinking about and reminding yourself that yes, things do happen sometimes, but in most cases, a fear can be unfounded. All right, so improving self-esteem then becomes kind of increasing your comfort zone, right? Now, some people are afraid of success, right? As much as they are afraid of failure, because success brings another host of issues, and it's a perception problem. You perceive certain things will happen when you become successful. So you're no longer in a comfortable area, and now you are experiencing physical symptoms just like you would if you were afraid of failing. You're in that fight or flight mode, and that can disturb your normal function. So try and think then, uses the visualization, imagine, right? You getting promoted, having financial success, getting that new degree, and think about the positive things that will happen because of that. All right. Another way you can help improve your self-esteem is through reframing your thoughts. So this one is can be a little bit difficult, but it's something you can get better with practice. All right. Just think about what I was saying earlier, right? Things become a perception issue. You're afraid of failing because of self-imposed beliefs. It is your perception, your lack of resources potentially, or having inadequate resources to deal, or skills to deal with a problem that can trigger these things. This is why different people react differently to the same situations. It is perception. All right, so this in many cases is what allows that person maybe that you think is really annoying because they see that bright side to every issue or problem, right? So you can have negative framing. For me, for example, I'm mid-40s now. I left the military. It would be very easy for me to think I'm too old to start over, or maybe I failed at the military, or I did a lot of things wrong, which I did, or having something happen and thinking to yourself, this is a disaster, and not wanting to do anything like it ever again. So with positive framing, you want to change that emotional perception, and in turn your ability to cope with this problem. So for me, for example, right, left the military. Instead of I'm too old to start over, I'm starting something new. I'm looking forward to new adventures, to doing different things. Maybe I'm looking forward to not having a 24-hour schedule. It is a perception issue, right? So thinking that, this is a challenge you can learn from, the skills I learned today are invaluable, and you can learn skills from failing at a task, all right? So it's not just, a spin, right? Obviously, if you've gotten a terrible car accident, you wouldn't be thinking to yourself, oh, this is great. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about everyday events where, you've applied negative self-talk or self-thoughts to this negative perceptions, and trying to see the good that can come from things. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a reframing activity, and this is something you can do on your own. Maybe you want to pause the course or class, right? Now, you can discuss things that initially seem negative but led to positive results. And then I also want you to write down things that are coming in the future and your initial maybe negative thoughts, and then think about the reframing process. And for many of you, if you're still in the military, could be going to a new duty station. So maybe you're thinking about all the negative things that are going to occur. You could reframe that. Think about the new people that you're going to meet, the new opportunities for promotion or hobbies, meeting friends or being in relationships, or getting to do different aspects of a position that you love. So there are ways to reframe issues. All right, so for self-esteem then, you can see there are ways to work on this, focusing on your self-talk. Even improving your resources can have a tremendous impact on your self-esteem. And the next course is a focus on resources. So hopefully that'll make you understand, right? Resources affect your emotional impact, right? They affect your perception of the way things are. And so you want to build up personal and professional resources to help your coping skills and help your self-esteem. Okay, so meaning and purpose. Now, these two words together, they're referenced by the CDC, the World Health Organization, many organizations that fight against suicide. They do stand for something, right? So looking at meaning, this is a motivating and a vitalizing force in human life. Finding meaning is feeling that life is of significance, it's worthwhile, or targeted. And then purpose refers to an intention, an aim to be met or to be achieved. Now, a purpose is not the same as like a short-term or a long-term goal. Short-term goal of learning how to play a song, right? Purpose is more than that. It could be an overarching state in your life. All right, so looking at meaning and purpose. Now this, I don't want to be misleading. I'm trying to show there's scientific evidence for many of these things. There was a study done in a retirement home, but they looked at commonalities for these 4 key experiences that were found to promote meaning and purpose in life. One of them was physical and mental well-being, and typically it's related to communion with it's related to your physical and mental health, right? Next up we have belonging and recognition, which is the one that's related to communion with family and friends, right? Personally treasured activities. And these activities are just examples. They may be different for you, but enjoying outdoor life, sharing valuable togetherness, so maybe that's friends, family, right? And valuable aloneness, and being alone is something that is important as well. All right, and then you have spiritual closeness and connectedness. This is related to inner strength and a positive outlook on life. And if you look at that, right, positive outlook on life, that can go back to self-esteem, right? Resources, all these things kind of build on each other and help. So, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention acknowledge in their definition of psychological well-being that a sense of purpose is an essential component of mental health. So I want you to keep in mind, do you know your meaning and purpose? All right, thank you very much for your time. You can see the references that I've pulled from here. I'm glad you were here with me, and I look forward to seeing you again. My name is Malcolm Carlisle, and have a good day.